So first off, I wanted to thank Phil for giving me the opportunity to speak on the spiritual discipline of worship. And then second off, I wanted to say that when I agreed to this, recording this for an online service in this room with this computer during these times was the last thing that I thought was going to happen. Um, I'm nervous. This is going to be messy. It's going to be pretty edited. Um, but I hope it's good. I hope that it impacts you and that you hear God through what I have to say. I'm thankful for this medium and that it allows me to edit it so I can have less mistakes than I would have if you saw me deliver this message in person. But I'm also sad that I don't get to be here and engage with you and see you react and know that I should explain things better or so on and so forth. But so with that being said, here's what I felt like I was supposed to tell y'all. Have you ever been to a worship service and you could see someone getting into it, but it was like you could like watch them intentionally put on a mask and suddenly like they just had a different face and they did that until the worship service was done and then they like changed their face back and it was like worship started and stopped for them. I've seen that and it bothers me. Like there's something that the hypocrisy about it just kills me. But on the other hand, have you ever been to? It doesn't have to be a worship service. It could just be a concert, and it feels like everyone else is experiencing something, but you're not. Like they get something that you don't, and you don't want to be that person that you can't stand that like is obviously putting on an act, but also you feel like if you're not doing something, if you're not outputting some sort of external sign, you're missing out on all these things that everyone else is around you. And I felt that like everyone else around me gets something, I just don't. And it makes me think of a story that's haunted me from my childhood ever since my dad told me. So now I'm going to tell you so it can haunt you. So there was a woman in a small town whose biggest dream in life was to go on a cruise. She was a unassuming, honest, very kind woman, and she would constantly save up for this cruise. But then other things in life would come along, and she would give away her money, only to have to start saving up again. Someone would need it. Some noble cause was worthy, and then she'd start saving up again. Um, she did this throughout her whole life, but eventually she ran into a path of smooth years where she was actually able to save enough money and buy the ticket for the cruise. So she did. She bought the ticket. She got everything in order. She packed her bag. She bought a bunch of peanut butter and a bunch of sandwiches, and then she went on the cruise. And it was everything that she thought it would be. Like the experience was amazing. She would go and eat breakfast and then go out and experience the sea air, and it was beautiful and breathtaking. And then she would eat a peanut butter sandwich in a different place for lunch every day, and then go and experience more, socialize, be in the pool, play games, and then eat another peanut butter sandwich somewhere else on the ship that she hadn't been before, and just marvel at it. And the nights there was concerts and more games and more socializing, and it was just the time of her life. And for the whole cruise, she just was having an amazing time. While we suspend that story just right there, I want to turn our attention to worship as a spiritual discipline. Transition. Everybody worships something. I don't want to keep talking about worship without setting down like a basic definition for it. So worship in its simplest form is giving honor to or giving adoration to something. To worship, to honor. To worship, to give adoration. Everybody worships something, but we don't all think about it the same. Worship is twofold, explicit and implicit. There's the what, and then there's the how. The explicit is really easy to see. It's when what we do is exclusively focused on worship. We sing songs, we speak aloud, we call out the glory that belongs to the object of our worship. This is what we usually mean when we talk about worship. But there is more. There is so much more. But it's harder to see because this is the implicit side of worship. This is the how. How do you do your homework? How do you behave at your job? How do you treat your kids? Now, never in life has anyone ever pulled out a calculator in a worship service when I've given the invitation to worship. but I've definitely worshipped with a calculator. I hated math as a kid. It was too boring, took too long, too much busy work, so on and so forth. But if I gave it my best shot, I honored the one who I believe made math and me both beautiful. Well, that's the hope. If you don't see yourself as a religious person, rest assured you still worship something. It could be yourself, it could be your job, it could be one of the classic three: money, sex, power. But it doesn't have to be something bad that you worship either. It can just be a good thing that you give way too much focus on. It can be your romantic partner, it could be your kids, it can be something that sneaks up on you and you don't even realize it, like your job. What you worship isn't necessarily about what you spend your time doing, but about the why and how you do the things you do. Everyone has three directions they can point their worship. They can point their worship inward, and it can be self worship. You can point it outward, and it's worship of others or worship of things. Or you can point it upward, the worship of God or of a higher power. When we talk about worshiping the higher power as Christians, we talk about worshiping a God of love. So, what better way to worship a God of love than by practicing love itself? And the Bible suggests the very same. When Jesus is asked what the greatest commandment of all is, um, he quotes the Old Testament and when he says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind." And continues later and says, and the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. Did you catch that? It's those same three directions that I just gave for worship, but pointed at love. Love has three ways that it can be directed, and the two greatest commandments lay out the relationship between the three. Love God with everything you have, and love yourself and love others the same, or as though we're all equally invaluable, equally important. The greatest commandment lays out the what and how of worshiping God. The what of worship is loving God, and the how is with everything we have. I want to take another look at this verse, but change some of the words to make it a little bit more specific. Love the Lord your God with all your car, with all your house, with all your job, with all your free time. Or maybe this hits more home for you. Love the Lord your God with all your TV, with all your food, with all your games, with all your toys. And one final one. Love the Lord your God with how you treat your family, how you treat your partner, how you treat your friends, and how you treat your kids. When we're talking about the how of worshiping God, I find three elements to be crucial to true worship. Worship must have authenticity. No masks, no hiding, no keeping a part of ourselves separate. Worship must have invitation. We invite others to our God, to this love, to this honesty, this life-giving honesty that we can find in authenticity. And worship must have commitment. Every moment that you come across that represents a choice between being fake or real, commit to choosing authenticity. Every moment that you come across that presents a choice between inviting or moving on, commit to choosing invitation. If you've committed to following the God of love, commit to the idea that love never stops transforming us. And if you get these three things right about worship, you don't have to be afraid that you're missing out on anything. So on that cruise trip, the captain had a tradition. Every night, he'd invite different passengers to have dinner with him. And by the end of the cruise, everyone had been invited. And it just so happened that Our Lady got invited on the last night. She wore her best outfit and was smiling all day. And when she got there, it was the fanciest dinner that she ever remembered being to. She made sure to thank the captain and explain how this cruise had been a dream that she'd had her whole life, and just how wonderful it had been and how wonderful his ship was, and so forth. And when the food came out, she marveled at it. This is so much better than peanut butter sandwiches. The captain heard her say this, and it struck him as odd. We don't serve peanut butter sandwiches on our ship. She was like, "Oh, no, no, it wasn't anything that you guys served. I've just been, I didn't have the money, so I've just been eating peanut butter sandwiches for lunch and dinner every day." And when he heard this, the captain started to weep a bit. Because what the lady didn't know, and what I wouldn't know if it weren't for this story, is that on cruises such as this, all the meals are included in the price of the ticket. If you think worship has a start time and a stop time, you're eating peanut butter sandwiches when you could be eating a feast. If you put on a face when the music starts, you're eating peanut butter sandwiches. If you're afraid to invite because you're not good enough, or if you refrain from inviting because they're not good enough, you're eating peanut butter sandwiches. If in your heart of hearts you're holding something back from worship, you're eating peanut butter sandwiches. We're not going to have ministry time today as a part of this online service, so what I want to leave you with is this reflection on the spiritual discipline of worship. Find something in your life this week, even just one thing that you feel is removed from your worship of God. You could be presenting a fake face at work just to keep things smooth. You could be holding back your TV viewing habits from God and letting it be something that you selfishly choose. You could be totally fed up and have given up with dealing with all the people that you're quarantined with. Um, Pick one thing though. Don't get overwhelmed by all the things that aren't right. Pick one thing and then practice dedicating it as worship. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind.